Tonight we are here to speak about our cousin, Jodi. But before I begin, I want to say what you hear and see tonight is only one part of her story. To understand what happened to Jodi, we must look at her whole life. Not just the final chapter, not just the footage, not just the image of a woman in crisis. We must look at the whole system around her and how that system failed her time and time again. Jodi had a traumatic childhood. She grew up carrying burdens that no children should ever have to carry. And yet, despite everything she had been through, she had this enormous personality. The kind of personality you heard before you saw her. She was loud, funny, cheeky, and a wonderful woman full of life. When Jodi walked into a room, you could really feel it. When her mental health declined, everything changed. The same girl who once filled every space with her voice began to hide. She shielded herself from family, from connection, from people who loved her the most. Like so many people living with complex mental health conditions, she became isolated. Not because she wanted to be, but because she didn't know where she fit or where she could turn safely. This is where the system should have stepped in. This is where care should have wrapped around her. This is where early intervention, compassion, coordinated services and support should have made a difference. But that is not what happened. 2 days before the horrific footage that the country saw through Four Corners and that you will see here tonight, thanks mostly to the determination of the Four Corners program and its reporters and staff, Dylan, Amy and Elise, whose determination, persistence and fight they sought to have the footage released. To give Jodi a face and a name, they had to fight in court just to tell Jodi's story. They showed us, as her family, that empathy, kindness, compassion and respect that Jodi was never shown. Two days before this, Jodi was in a chemist trying to fill a prescription for the medication she desperately needed. She was trying to help herself. She was doing exactly what we tell people to do. Seek help. Take your medication. Instead of receiving that support, she experienced a psychotic episode right there in the chemist. Instead of a mental health response, the police were called. Instead of de-escalation, she was pepper sprayed and arrested. Instead of care, she was remanded in Amber L'Oreal Correction Centre. A prison cell became her treatment plan. No medication was administered to Jodi whilst in the custody of the correction centre. And then, just hours after she was released, she was the victim of one of the most brutal and cruel acts, police violence, ever captured on body-worn camera footage. That was some of the most shocking scene in Australia. As you will see, Jodi was naked, terrified, in the middle of a psychotic episode, crouched under a tree, vulnerable and very afraid. She screamed. she told them she was terrified of police. She begged them to go away. But you will all and have seen what happened next. When Nichole and I finally saw the footage of what happened to Jodi, it broke us in a way that is hard to put into words. Sitting there, watching our cousin, naked, terrified, completely vulnerable and alone, we felt sick, we felt helpless, we felt rage, we felt disbelief, but most of all, we felt grief. A grief that sits deep within your bones. We watched officers treat her with a level of force and aggression that no human being deserves, especially not someone in the middle of a mental health crisis. And as we watched, all we can think of was how could anyone look at her so scared, so unwell, alone, and respond with that kind of cruelty? Who could do that to another human being? This was not policing. This was brutal and cruel. This was a woman in crisis being brutalised by the people who were supposed to protect her. We had to stop the video. We had to walk outside. We needed just to breathe, to let the tears flow. Because seeing someone you love treated that way, it haunts you. It changes you. It makes you realise just how urgently this system needs to change. And still, even after all this, no PACER nurse was called. Not before, not during, and not after. Again, 3 months later, it happens. Police were called to her home and reported she was pacing her driveway with a kitchen knife. Another moment, she was in a mental health crisis. Officers taser her twice and arrest her. And once again, no mental health clinician was brought to the scene. Not once, not twice, but 3 times in 3 months. This is not just a failure of one moment. This is not just the failure of 2 officers. This is a failure of an entire system.
That's right.
Yep.
A system that continues to respond to mental health crises with force, instead of with care, with weapons instead of compassion, with punishment instead of with treatment. Jodi is no longer with us. She can't speak for herself, but we can. And we will not let her story be reduced to a headline or a piece of footage. We want to see her whole story. The little girl who survived a traumatic childhood. The young woman with the big laugh you could hear before you saw her. The cousin we loved. The woman who needed help. Not the woman that was met with violence. We need a system that sees the whole person. We need PACER nurses at every mental health call out. We need trauma-informed care, early intervention, and continual support. We need police who are trained, truly trained, to respond to mental illness. Respond with humanity, not force. We need accountability, transparency, and a cultural change. And we need leadership, real leadership, Leadership that makes these changes happen. Because mental health reform cannot wait. Families cannot wait. People in crisis cannot wait. Jodi's story should have never ended the way it did. But her story can still create change. Her story can still save lives. Her story can still be the reason we finally say enough is enough. So I ask you, all of you, to stand with us, stand with Jodi, stand with every family who has been failed, stand with every person who is still fighting to be heard, to be seen, to be cared for. Let Jodi's story be the turning point. Let her legacy be change. We leave here tonight carrying Jodi's experience with us. But I pose this question to you all. If this was your family member, someone you loved, what would you want their experience to be? What would you want it to look like? What kind of response would you expect? What kind of care would you demand? Thank you.